Megan, have you had a turn to summarize?
Sorry?
Have you had a turn to summarize yet?
No, I haven't. I can
You want to
get
do it?
myself ready for that, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. Okay, I'm Melanie.
I'm
Tiffany.
Lisa. Oh, I'm Lisa. I'm Annette.
I'm Megan.
Okay. All right, Megan, you can just let us know whenever you're ready.
Okay, just give me one more second.
Okay.
I have really liked this class. I didn't think I would at the beginning. I thought I really liked it.
I really like it too. I'd heard good things about it, so I was kind of excited, and it has been interesting.
This is probably my favorite class that I've taken. I really enjoy it.
Well, I was
Yeah.
going to die the first couple weeks, so but now I'm okay.
I know those
Yeah.
papers were a little rough.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So I can read the questions, and then we'll just go through them. So the first one was Dr. George will discusses many important topics. So choose one that you're personally interested in and research. So should we just go through and each say what we did?
Sure.
Okay. I thought it was interesting, the No Child Left Behind. So I did a little bit of research on that. Did anybody else do that one?
I did.
I did too.
I did that one too.
Oh, how funny. Well, okay. We probably found similar things. So I felt, President Bush felt that the states were not doing enough to improve the schools, the low-performing schools, and so this was an attempt to do that, to level the playing field and hold schools more accountable. So anybody else find something different?
I found too that it was replaced in December of 2015 with the Every Student Succeeds Act. Did anyone else find that? I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either. I have to look
What is
that
it
up.
called?
Yeah. It's Every Student Succeeds Act.
Okay.
It's kind of interesting, and so it said it basically replaced the outdated No Child Left Behind, and so it still does the standardized testing, but it's I was a little bit confused by it, so I want to research it some more. But I think what it sounds like is it tries to make it so the standards. Let me read my notes. Sorry, just a second. But it just says it modified the standards. So I didn't find a whole lot of information, so I'm trying to research that some more. But then we have the Common Core that's out there now too, and so I'm wondering if that's part of the Common Core thing. And so that was done because a lot of states were just their standards were so low, and so they're supposedly trying to so that everybody's equal. I don't think it's as successful as they hoped it would be because teachers are just teaching to the test, and I don't think the kids are really learning it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That was just what I found.
As a mom that my kids are doing Common Core, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't think my kids are learning as much.
I think it makes it more confusing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So,
It seems to take the power away from the states too.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I thought it was interesting that George Will said in regards to the No Child Left Behind that they're just going to dumb down the curriculum so that they can meet their standards, because it's too much pressure to put on the schools and the teachers, and every kid is kind of at a different level anyway, and that's one of the other problems is it didn't really account for individual improvement. You know, one thing I read said a kid could improve 2 grades but still be behind grade level standards, so it didn't really take into account that the kids were improving. It just took into account that they met these standards that they had set. So,
Well, that is one of my problems with No Child Left Behind, is because kids are so different. Not everyone's going to grow up to be a scientist or whatever, and so if we try to like push everyone in one direction, it's not going to work.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, trying to lump everybody into the same category doesn't work.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting too. Like he seemed to insinuate that a big part of the problem is these children that are born outside of wedlock. They're just not getting the help that they need and stuff like that. So that's kind of we need to. It seemed like he was trying to point out that that's where That's where the government needs to focus. They need to help with that problem and help these children that are born out of wedlock in order to, it's impacting the education as well for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. Did you guys understand? Is that kind of your take that you got off of that?
I don't remember that part when he said that.
Yeah, he said, what did he say? I can't remember, that was one of the problem that people didn't want to talk about. Am I thinking of that right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because that's my topic for the papers and stuff that I had written, and it is a huge problem because those kids just don't do as well. Interestingly enough, when they don't have a dad in the home, they don't do as well in school, and so it's interesting that the government won't recognize that that's part of the problem. And so I think they're trying to put a Band-Aid on other areas, and it isn't working because they need to focus on some of the more core issues that are causing the problem. So it's kind of interesting to hear him say that. So the other thing I noticed, he said they're trying to make it 100% efficient for all kids, that they'd be proficient by 2014, which didn't work. So I think that was one of the other problems with the No Child Left Behind. It really wasn't effective in meeting their high standards and their high goals.
Well, and it's tied. The other thing I didn't like about No Child Left Behind too, it's tied to this teacher's salary, is what I understood. So
Mm-hmm.
if they don't perform, then the teacher can get fired or not get the raise or whatever. It's from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they could shut down schools that weren't meeting the standards. And then I read something too that said kids have a right, if they are in a school that isn't meeting the standards, to go somewhere else. But they said it's not really effective because nobody was taking advantage of that. They weren't leaving the schools that were underperforming. So some of the things that they had in place just weren't really working. So, yeah, any other thoughts on, did somebody do something other than No Child Left Behind?
I did food stamps.
Okay.
Because George Will had said 48 million Americans receive food stamps. So I went and looked it up. And in February of this year, we actually had 44.3 million Americans on food stamps. So the the participants of food stamps have actually gone down. And just this year, well, from January and February, it had gone down nearly 1.3 million people. So something is working to help get people off of food stamps. The goal of the program, of course, was to help alleviate hunger and malnutrition by increasing food purchasing power for all eligible households who apply and participate. I think it's been effective for those that do need it. Part of it, some people that get food stamps, of course, kind of abuse the power. People, they'll lie about their income or, take money under the table so that they can qualify for it. And then I had a sister who was on food stamps for a while, and for her very young family, she ended up getting about $12,000 no, $1,200, $1,200 a month for food, which, was more than double what I paid monthly for my family of 7 to eat. And from the state, what is it, the workers? I don't even know what they're called. For they're not social workers. Whoever you go and report to at the offices to apply for food stamps and stuff, they kept telling her to use everything up. And so, here we've got some poor families, and they have the opportunity to eat steak and lobster multiple times a month, where many of us regular working people don't even get that once a month and stuff. So, I think that the government can definitely help educate people on how to budget better so they don't get such an excessive amount for food each month. But I do like, what was it? Dr. Will quoted, I thought he quoted somebody on this, but I copied it down. He said, change begins with one person wanting to make a difference. And so I think the way that the government could possibly help is by just teaching people how to budget a little bit better. If they're having some financial problems, have classes that teach them how to budget, and also in regards to food stamps, teach them how to, cook beans from scratch, or, make cheaper food, learn how to stretch your food. Anyway, that's what I was thinking.
I think on the other side of that too, I think it depends on the state. Because I know, like when I was pregnant, we'd had a bunch of bad things happen, so we needed help with the medical costs even, and so we tried to apply. And in Utah, they don't have anybody that comes and sits down with you or anything. Like in Idaho, they had someone that could sit with you, but in Utah, they didn't have anyone to sit with you and help you with the paperwork, and they made it incredibly difficult to understand and to fill out. And so we got denied, even though we didn't have, like, we definitely were like overqualified to receive this help. We desperately needed it. We were like pretty much homeless, and it was and it ended up finally we went to the hospital that we were going to deliver our baby at, and they were able to help us, and they had someone that was able to sit down with us too. So I think it depends on the state, like you were talking about in how your sister was getting so much money and stuff like that, and it seems like it was kind of easy. Here, I think it depends on the state where you're from, and based on the help that's available. And so I think that I think it needs to be kind of both sides. It needs to be difficult for people to take advantage of the system, but at the same time, easier to actually determine who needs the help and get the help to those that need the help. Because there are a lot of people that don't understand the paperwork and stuff like that and aren't getting the help that they need, and I think, because I researched that for another class, and there were so many. I think it's in Salt Lake. We went, and there's at the homeless shelter there. They actually have people that are assigned to actually sit down and help these people, because they need all these benefits and stuff like the food stamps and stuff like that, and just to get back on their feet and housing and all that. They don't know how to. A lot of them have been like denied or whatever. They're not filling it out properly or whatever, and so they actually have someone come in and volunteer hours to help sit down with them and help them fill out the paperwork. So I think that's an issue too. I think that was something else he talked about, was like the taxes and stuff like that. That we have to, some of these things like the loopholes and stuff that you have to jump through to get assistance when you actually need it is difficult too. So I don't know. That was just my take on that too.
When I was first, or when my baby was born, he was premature, and both my husband and I were in school, and so I had to go on WIC for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very humbling, but you had to take classes. There was classes that you had to take, but it was mainly about nutrition. It wasn't about cooking. It wasn't about budgeting or anything. It was just mainly about nutrition. And then when when my husband, he graduated shortly thereafter, after he graduated and got a good job, I went to return my coupons or whatever, and they're like, oh no, you can keep those. And I'm all like, but my husband has a good paying job now, and so we're not needing it. And she's all like, but you can stay on it longer. And it was almost like they were like forcing me to have it. And I was all like, no, I don't want it. And that was a little odd for me too, because I was all like, okay, now I feel like we can take care of ourselves. And anyway, it was weird.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing you won't really find on the internet, and I know people kind of argue about, my sister, so we're in California, and my sister actually went to the office, the main office, and she has to bring this huge package. She has to bring her driver's license, her social security card, all of the children's social security card, their birth certificates, all these legal documents before she could get her monthly stipend, I guess you could call it. And so she asked them one time, she said, what would happen if I didn't, if I didn't bring my, information and stuff? And they said, well, you could be arrested for not having the proper documents that you need. And then she said, okay, another scenario, what if I came in and said that I was illegal, I just came into the country, and I have no money? And they said, oh, that's not a problem, we would just give it to you. So I think that's kind of a problem with our government handouts, per se.
Wow, that is interesting. Yeah. I lived in California, and we just moved to Utah about 8 months ago, so I know what you're saying, Lisa, about some of the welfare and people eating steak and kind of living the high life, and it doesn't, at least there, I felt like it doesn't, people don't want to get off it because they're living a pretty good life, and if they work, that all goes away. So it is flawed in a lot of respects, and kind of interesting though to see how many the numbers on that are interesting, I think. So I think maybe we kind of talked about this, but did you guys catch anything based on George Will's speech? What could the government be doing right now to help this situation? I'm assuming that's the ones what we were just talking about, the No Child Left Behind and the food stamps. Does anybody have a specific thought on what he said? I know that we kind of talked about, one thing he said was we need to focus on or look at the children that are being born out of wedlock. Anybody catch anything else that relates to that question?
I think too. I liked what he said about like kind of if you like contribute something, if you like own it, then you take care of it. And so I think like with the education thing, I read an article about LDS education at one point and about how the members had to actually pay for their children to attend these LDS schools and how a lot of families shied away from that. But I think when you help pay for school and stuff like that, I think you're more involved. And if you're making these important decisions, you're more involved. And I mean, if that's the one place we're involved, how important is that, to be in charge, involved in our children's future? I think a lot of parents kind of step out of the picture because they figure the school is taking care of it. But I think parents need to be more involved, even financially. I think, I don't know. That seemed like something that I picked up that I thought could be applied to the schools too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I just kept thinking that throughout his talk, it just seems like he was saying we just need less government involvement. That, maybe like you're saying, Tiffany, we need to take back some of the control and not have them involved in every aspect of our lives. But I don't know how you do that. That seems kind of daunting because we've got this system in place. But okay. So Dr. Will, we talked about this. Dr. Will cites a problem no one wants to talk about, and that was children that are born out of wedlock. And the second part of that was with Bronfenbrenner's model, how is this issue impacting children and families, communities, and our nation? So what did you guys find for that?
Well, I know he talked about having just kind of more kids on the street without, parental supervision type thing. Or maybe I'm imagining he said it. But, there's definitely a lot more kids that are getting into mischief. It's funny you guys talked about No Child Left Behind and all the school stuff, because I'm married to a school teacher, and all of his family are teachers. His dad was a teacher and then became principal. His mom taught for years, and his sister was a teacher, and she now coaches teachers. And she actually likes the basic principles of Common Core, which is kind of different from everybody else's opinion. But I thought it was interesting how Dr. Wills said that because of all these issues with, 1 in 3 children born are out of wedlock, and, we've got, some adolescent problems here, the schools just can't teach. They can't do it. And my husband's in an area where his school is, I think it's 90% of his school qualify as low income. And so for most of his students, none of the parents are home. And he, because he is so lucky, he gets all the troubled kids. He's not a special ed teacher, but he gets all the problem kids. And so he has students that are failing, and not once has he seen the parent come in. So I think a lot of what needs to happen is parents need to start caring. And, there's a lot of kids that the parents just don't seem to care enough to get involved.
That's interesting. Do you think that, or I had done some research too for another class on parent involvement in schools, and it said a lot of times the parents aren't educated themselves, or they don't speak English well enough, that they don't feel like they aren't confident enough to come into the schools, or they're intimidated by it. Do you think that that is an issue there too, or?
Definitely. He has most of his school, if you are white and you go to his school, you are the minority. Most of his school is Hispanics and Armenian. And there's quite a bit of, what did he call it? I think he called it a dual illiteracy problem, where the students are illiterate in both English and Spanish. And there's a huge communication gap between the generations, because the parents, they came from Mexico and they only speak Spanish, whereas the children were born and raised here, they can understand Spanish, but they only speak English. So they can't communicate back and forth very well. So I do think that's a problem with parental involvement. That, and they are poor, and so some of these parents are working 2 to 3 jobs just to try and make ends meet.
I wonder if that's part of the problem too, is that parents just don't have the time to go to these meetings and stuff like that. Like, especially single parents, if they're like working 2, 3 jobs to try to make ends meet, if they're just not, knowing that their children are failing, or even having the time to help. I wonder if that's part of the issue too. So, I don't know.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's a big part of why they're not around, because they're working so much. So yeah, but we do know that some of these families that are in a school are taking their money under the table, because the kids have better phones than my husband, and the parents definitely drive better cars. My husband's driving a 2002 Saturn. And some of the parents in his very poor neighborhood school are driving Mercedes and, you know, Cadillac SUVs and stuff. So
Yeah, I had just said similar things to you, Lisa, on that issue. Um, I kind of thought it was interesting that children born out of wedlock who don't have the same privileges or maybe the same luxuries that kids with two parents in the home just creates this inequality. And George Will talked about that this kind of drives inequality, I think he said. And that just creates a whole bunch of different problems in the community, like we talked about with the welfare and the government then needing to step in to improve the schools. So I think that's another way that this issue kind of affects different levels of the Bronfenbrenner model. So those are some of my thoughts on that. Does anybody have anything to add?
Yeah, I put like the how it was involved. It's impacting the mother's and the child's life, obviously, but it's also like we talked about the schools, taxes, reliance on government funding. All those different levels. It kind of impacts everybody.
Okay, so according to Dr. Will, one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. So reflect on what you've learned and discuss this week and then respond. Do you agree with Dr. Will?
This reminded me of the quote from Joseph Smith where it talks about, I teach them correct principles and they govern themselves. It just kind of reminded me of that. I don't think the government should be involved in everything. Like, I loved how he talked about how this is like one of the first generations that where we're stealing from the future instead of building things for the future, we're taking away from the future. And so we need to, we need to be taking care of things, as many things as we can on our own, so that we're not stealing from that future, and so that we can, like he said, the government wants to take care of everybody, but we don't have the money to do that at the same time. So we can't have expect them to take care of everything without, I guess, going into debt for the future, which doesn't help our kids at all. We're just making a problem for our kids. And I think, and I wonder how much of that is a lot of people aren't having children anymore, or they're, I don't know, it just seems so against the family. So I wonder if that impacts how much we're thinking about the future and how much it's impacting children. I don't know. What are your guys' takes on it?
Well, I thought it was interesting when he said the retirement age, how we should increase the retirement age, because we have so many people that are retiring early now that are, that are living longer, that could be working and helping support. I thought my dad took early retirement. He's still alive. He's 75, but he retired at like 55 because they offered this early retirement for him, so he took it. But I think, he's bored at home and stuff. So I was just thinking about it that way. If we don't expect people, if we expect people to work longer and contribute more to society, I think that would be one way to help with the future. Because we are living longer. We have more health, medical and stuff to help with that. But I also liked his point that we, like the doctors don't even know how much like a CAT scan costs or anything like that, because we don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. And so we need to get out of how the healthcare system in that as well as causing problems.
I think the only other thought, I love what you guys have said, and I agree with all that. As I was kind of thinking about, how do we do more for ourselves to kind of protect our freedoms, and I was thinking of Elder Christofferson's talk that we read, The Moral Development, and he said, if we, I'm totally paraphrasing, I'm probably not going to get it right, but he said something like, if we had better self-control, if we could better govern ourselves, then we wouldn't need the government to step in so much. And I kept thinking about, how do we do that? I think it's hard to make these kinds of changes in our society, but everything stems back to the family. Just kind of, I don't, just an interesting thought that our families really are central, and it's frustrating that there's so much attack on the family. I just can't see our society getting better if we don't have these core units where we're, parents are teaching their kids, and we're raising kids who are able to kind of have some self-discipline in certain areas. But I think we have to try. I think that's how we kind of protect our freedoms and our rights, and keep the government from having to be so involved in every aspect of our lives.
Kind of along with that, when you mentioned his talk, I love that part where he said, at best, the police and criminal justice systems are the last desperate line of defense for a civilized society. There can never be enough rules so finely crafted to anticipate and cover every situation. And even if they were, enforcement would be impossibly expensive and burdensome. This approach leads to diminished freedom for everyone. So I thought that, especially like that goes back to like that quote by Joseph Smith too, that we need to take those correct principles, and we shouldn't have to be told to follow those and stuff like that. We need to just, I think that's a big one too, is we just need to do it. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's scary. I don't think people realize how much government involvement diminishes our individual rights in a lot of ways. I don't know if you guys seen some of those Prager University clips in some of your classes. I remember one that said, the bigger the government, the smaller the person. And so, we do have to be careful, and I don't try to limit that to an extent. And maybe we do that through our voting, or, I don't know how it works, but it seems daunting to try to fix all these problems. I don't know. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that quote or what Dr. Will said? Okay, and the last question is, in what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families? Mine is children being born out of wedlock, and I just had a couple thoughts on that. First, I think they should be involved in protecting the rights of families. I think that's first and foremost, and encouraging children to be born into families with a married mother and father. And where they should not be involved is our religious freedoms, which we're seeing that starting to creep in there. But my thoughts on that.
I, for some reason, was thinking it was the topic that we chose for this particular assignment. So I was going more off of the education, but I think my other topic, my threat that they chose, was mental illness. And I think with that, I think the involvement that should be done there is just, I don't know, I think on the government level they can be involved in letting people know that it is a problem, and that we need to talk about. I don't know, but at the same time, it's hard because there shouldn't be a ton of government involvement, but I think that is one way that the government can help. And they can help, approve different medications and approve research and stuff like that. I think that's where, because we can't really do that on an individual level, so I think that's where the government can and should step in, is, encouraging and allowing this research to be done for more medications and stuff like that. But then I guess the rest just kind of, once we get that education and get that, access to medication, then I guess it comes down to the families then to make the decisions and stuff from there.
So my threat was video game addictions. And I don't know that the government can really be super involved in that. I guess one thing I would really like is just a complete ban on any video games that have nudity in it. Because, right now they're just kind of rated M and stuff, where really they should be rated X if they do have nudity in it. I know some years ago my husband borrowed a video game from a friend uh, just to see if he wanted to buy it because, it had good reviews and stuff, and he didn't pay too much attention to because, it was rated for older, adults or whatever it was, but it didn't, it was played a lot by kids, so he didn't think much about it. And then when he was playing, all of a sudden, these, I guess they were sirens, but they're popping up out of the to shoot whatever it is, zombies or whatever, and stuff. And these female sirens were bare-breasted and stuff. And he's like, oh, and he turns it off. And it's just if they just put like a big X or something, just cover the whole wrapping in brown paper, or make it so that parents kind of know that these really should not be played by children or anybody with any moral values at all, then it could help a lot. But, for the most part, I think it's just all, we just need to be aware and read all the packaging that comes with video games.
Is there not anything on there that says it has nudity in it?
When my husband told me about it, he turned everything off. He's all, I didn't even realize that it would. And so we read the back of it, and in the little tiny prints, like when you read, PG or G, and you read on the
Yes.
little tiny little bit, it does say like brief nudity type thing. But yeah, it's crazy.
Well, my threat was cohabitation that I had, and I don't know how the government could get involved in that, except with not giving so much away. What I found is that there's people that are not purposely not getting married so they can get the government benefits. In fact, is one of the guys that my husband works for, or used to work for us. Him and his girlfriend, they had 2 kids together, but they're like, and he was making good money in computers. He had graduated with a computer degree and was working with my husband, and anyway, but she still wanted all the benefits of having free school and all this kind of stuff about being a single mom, and then also having the dad there. So I don't know how you can't like go into everyone's house and say, okay, are you guys, so I don't know if there's like an easy solution. I don't think any of our politicians have an answer at all. I think they just want to keep the course going the way it's always been going. There's not anyone, I don't think, that comes out and just says, okay, we're just, we have a huge problem here because people won't vote for them.
Yeah, I think for that, they have to make marriage look really good. So marriage has to be something that people want to have versus just, oh, well, it's just a piece of paper, but we're living together anyway. Maybe when people file their taxes, they can look and see, okay, this person and this person are living in the same household. We can look at that, but I think that would, I guess the government is the IRS. So, they have plenty of people there. They can have somebody doing address checks and stuff, and then they can, audit those people to see, are they in a relationship, or is it 2, separate family members or something that just happen to need to live in the same house.
I think, too, like, I don't know, the government and stuff just seems so, I don't know, our society in general just seems to say basically like morals are just religious and stuff, but honesty is just a basic thing. And if we encouraged honesty in our society, I think it would fix so many of the problems. You wouldn't need that, all these laws and stuff like that to be there if we had people that were being honest. Because I think when they create more laws, then it actually makes it harder for people who actually do need help to get the help that they need, because we're trying to prevent those that are cheating the system. So it hurts everybody all the way around. I think a big thing, but you can't really, I don't know, you can't force people to be honest either. So I don't know. I don't know.
I think that's a great point, Tiffany, because you really can't force people and you can't make them do what they want, which of course is why it's great to live in America and stuff, because we do have that freedom of choice, which is a good and a bad thing.
Did you have any thoughts on your threat, Megan, that you wanted to share?
So my threat was the sanctity of life. So I guess like the government just needs to protect the lives of everyone, even those who are unborn.
Yeah, I was actually, sorry, Tiffany, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that that we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and I think that goes a lot with what you're saying, Megan, that these little babies have a right to life, and so that is a huge thing. I think the government should be protecting those rights. I mean, that's part of our Declaration of Independence. So kind of interesting that they disregard it in that specific circumstance.
Has anyone heard of that story? I think it's called like Unwound or something. My sisters told me they had to read it for class, but it's about how abortion is outlawed until like, I don't even remember the age, but it was like until the child was a teenager. And then if you didn't want them anymore, you could have them unwound or whatever, and their body parts would be used to help people or whatever. And so I think the point of the story was just to say, people are like, oh, that's so wrong. They're teenagers at that point. At the same time, it was trying to say, well, okay, you're trying to get rid of a baby. That's a living human being still, even though they aren't born yet. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard of that, but.
I don't know. Sometimes I think I could sign up for that one with my teenager. Just kidding. I wouldn't really, but anyway.
That's funny. Yeah, teenagers are fun. It's so funny. Okay, I think we got through all the questions. So, Megan, do you want to give us a quick summary?
Yes, I'll do my best.
Thanks.
I don't know if I'm going to do it right, but okay. So we discussed government involvement in No Child Left Behind Act, and we said that the purpose was to level the playing field and hold schools more accountable, but they replaced it with Every Student Succeed Act and Common Core. We also discussed food stamps, and the purpose was to alleviate hunger and malnutrition. The results of these were the No Child Left Behind Act. There was too much pressure to put on schools and teachers. It didn't count for individual improvement. It only took into account the standards that were set. They were trying to lump everyone in the same category, and that doesn't work. It was not effective in meeting their standards and their goals. And if students did not perform, teachers could get fired, lose raises, and schools could be shut down. With food stamps, it decreased the amount of families on food stamps, and it has been effective to a certain extent for those families who need it. However, people might lie about their income. We talked about what the government could be doing, and we said that teaching people how to budget would be helpful, having classes, teach people to cook different things that stay within budget, have an appropriate amount of government control. We need to take control over things we can do ourselves. We then talked about the problem that no one wants to talk about, and we discussed how the issue impacts children and families, and we said that more kids are on the street without parental supervision, more kids who are getting into mischief, more children are out of wedlock. Some things the schools just cannot teach. There are many low-income students. Parents tend to be further away from the home. There's failing students and less parental involvement, and it drives inequality. We then discussed our responsibility and the country's responsibility, and we did agree with Dr. Will. We need to do what we can for ourselves, and we cannot expect government aid in everything. If we could better govern ourselves, we would not need the government to step in. And then we discussed what we could do personally, or what areas we personally felt the government should be involved and should not be involved. And we said that the government should be involved in protecting the rights of families. They should not be involved in our religious freedoms. They should help people understand the issues of mental illness, improving research, and etc. They should put a ban on video games with nudity, or at least really make it known that that is in those video games. They should encourage honesty and protect all lives, including those who are unborn.
Good job. I think that was it. Okay, I think that was it. Anything else we need to add before we wrap up? Nope.
No, but next week I will not be here.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd let you guys know.
Okay, thanks.
Yay, vacation!
Are you going somewhere fun?
Well, no, my sixth grader has his graduation.
Oh, okay. That's pretty important. Yeah. That's kind of a big deal. Do you want to do it a different time, or are you okay missing?
I'll be okay missing. I'll just
Give yourself a break.
I'll see if I can get all the work done, and then maybe submit my answers on the discussion board for the Hangout. So we'll see if I can get that far.
Okay, that sounds good.